Otherwise, we continue on stage here with our next keynote entitled The Payment Evolution of eMobility. And I think we have a great speaker for that. He's also not new to the Intercharge Network Conference. He's been here before. So please welcome Luuk van Kuik, Strategy Director at Last Mile Solutions. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great to be here back at stage at ICNC, and great to see you all here interested in this topic. Before we start, I would like to ask you to look at the screen, take out your phone, go to menti.com and enter the 8-digit code, or do it via the QR code on screen, because we want to make this session a bit more interactive. And therefore, I'm going to ask you a few questions to you, some triggering questions to get your opinion as well. So I'll give you a moment to prepare for this. All right, I hope everyone is ready. Then let's dive in, and let's start with a statement from our side. So, despite the fact that the full EV market is founded on and dominated by closed-loop charging, meaning in the forms of charge cards, we at LMS believe that the future of EV charging payments will be based on open-loop technology. Why do we think so? Let me take you along in this presentation in the next 20 minutes to hopefully make that also to let you see this. So let's continue. Before we dive into this topic, let me quickly introduce Last Mile Solutions to you for the ones that don't know us. So we are a European market-leading platform for EV charging and energy transactions. Founded in 2007, basically just before the EV market in the Netherlands started. And we offer, at one hand, we offer an EV charging management platform, full stack technology for CPOs and MSPs, white label, European-wide. But at the other hand, we also provide an energy transactions and payment platform, fully compliant across Europe, multi-VAT, multi-currency, doing over close to 100 million transactions by now, and therefore that's also something we offer to our customers. In 4 words, 5 words honestly, we turn energy into value. That's basically what we do as a company. All right, that's Last Mile Solutions. So let's get back on the topic of the EV payment evolution. To do this, I want to provide some context to you first. So as you know, the EV market is like this big hockey stick that everybody knows, right? Where in the past, if you take a closer look, in the past 14 years, if you take 2010 as the rough starting point, 2009, it took us 14 years to get to the 19% of total estimated EVs on the road by 2030. Meaning we have still 7 years ahead to do the remaining 81%. Similarly, this applies as well, of course, to the public infrastructure, where we took 14 years to do 26% of the public infrastructure. And in the next 7 years, we still have to do 76%, which is over 200 million charge points, 2 million charge points. What can we conclude from this is that the market is not mainstream yet, because the big volume still has to come. But one thing that we know is that one of the key obstacles to this, to mainstream eMobility for the mass market, is EV charging payment. And to make sure we all talk about the same thing, let me quickly define this for you. So the market was founded with charge cards and key fobs, which we call closed loop technology. Why do we call this closed loop? Because the charge card can only be applied within the EV ecosystem itself. You can't charge, you can't pay with this or use this in another ecosystem, in fuel or in food or retail. The technology is based on MyFair, and we use that partially in our industry. And the communications RFID, and anyone basically can become an MSP issuing these kind of cards if they want. There are little barriers to entry. At the other side, there's now the market's facing challenges by bank cards, digital wallets, card on file transactions, which we call open loop. Why do we call it open loop? Because with these same cards, you can also be used for fuel, for transport, for food, for retail, etc. Technology used is EMV, and they also use a similar kind of communication for wireless communication. Only thing is they can only be issued by financial compliant institutions. So let's dive in both of them and what the downsides are in terms of this evolution that we're facing. So first, let's take a look at closed loop. One of the big problems there is acceptance. And that's funny if you think about it, because every public charge point in Europe, for example, has a MyFair reader in it. But still, as an individual driver, you can't use your single card to travel across Europe and charge in the UK, in Italy, in Norway, in Iceland, or whatsoever, with that single card. Because we're dependent on the interoperability contracts of roaming, and where we see different market characteristics and cross-border differences basically preventing this. And of course, as an industry, we're working hard to get this solved. But still today, it's a downside. Next is the customer experience, right? So having this problem, it leads that a customer, sometimes within one single country, but also across Europe, needs multiple cards and multiple apps to get their charging experiences. And then, as we faced already, price transparency or price intransparency is also there, which is now regulated. It's one of the effects we've already seen, but also that applies or affects the customer experience. Third is, and maybe the most important one, is security. As you know, these cards can be copied quite easily, and the ID that's being used is being used unencrypted across the whole industry. So it's really prone to fraud. Talking about fraud, this brings me to the first question. So please, pull out your phone and ask the following question. So what do you think is the current fraud percentage? And we express this in the total payment volume within our current eMobility market. Please go there and submit your votes. I will give you some time to do so. All right, close to 100 votes, so there are some statistics in here. So let's have a look. All right, so there's little people, honestly there's no one thinking it's only 1%. If we make the reference to open loop payments, and you talk, for example, about card present payments, where you have a physical card in front of your reader, we know it's between 0.5 and 1% is the fraud percentage in open loop technology. And if your card not present digital wallets, it's even less. It's less than 0.01%. So we already think that it's in our market way, way bigger and happening. Of course, we don't know the actual number because our market is still quite immature and there is no overarching institution that controls or standardizes these reporting. But it's of course already, I think it's quite worrisome that most of you are on the right side of this graph, right? Let me tell you one thing about fraud, is that it's actually happening. And not on only a small scale, but already on a large scale. And we have been detecting this, not only in our system, but we're also receiving it from partners, hearing it from other partners. So it's really actually happening. Let me give you 5 examples. I just will tip 2 of them. One is just single RFID card misuse, where you as a person, you let your neighbor charge at your home, but your employer is going to reimburse basically the kilowatt hours of your neighbor to your bank account. It's quite innocent, but it happens, right? But if you run it up, you get to these kind of situations where you can, if we speak about number 5, 250,000 euros of fraud actually happened by organized group of fraudsters using the virtual IDs that can easily be stolen and duplicated with fake IDs via remote transactions. So here you go. If you want to know more about this, at 5 p.m. today, my colleague Peter van Zijlen will give a masterclass about fraud. And there's actually 30 scenarios that we have been seeing in the market. So, but let's move on. Also, open loop, of course, has its downsides. So let's take a look at them. Also there, acceptance is still a key issue. This opposite to closed loop, where the hardware is there. At the open loop side, you see that until a couple of years back, there was little to no payment terminal other way possible to use your open loop or your bank card. Now with A4 coming in since this year, the public DC is regulated, but AC is still the mass market of public charging, right? So still there on the acceptance, it's still a barrier to overcome. Then there's the costs. As a CPO, as a hardware manufacturer, you have additional costs to add such a payment terminal, for example, to make open loop become available. And then there's, of course, in the payment ecosystem, more actors are playing, which also want a piece of the pie of the value chain, of course. And last, this market, the open loop market, is already financially regulated, which provides a barrier to entry. So let's take this into account. Put your phone up again, and I will ask the following question to you. What will be to you? Oh, it's already there. That's great. You're fast. What will be the dominant technology for EV payment by 2035? So 10 years from now. So as of today, it's dominated by closed loop still. But in 10 years from time, what do you think will be the dominant technology? I'll give you a moment to add up the votes. All right, thank you for voting. Quite an interesting outcome. So a lot of people are agreeing with us at Last Mile Solutions that the future of EV charging payments will be open loop technology. But still there are some people that think it's evenly split, so 1/5 of the audience, and 1/10 still thinks it's closed loop. So I really would like to invite everyone, also of course who voted again with us for open loop, but especially the ones that voted for closed loop and evenly split, to come over to our booth after this presentation to further discuss this, because I'm really eager to hear your thoughts as well. In the meantime, let me explain by the future, some future trends in open loop payment, why we think this will be the dominant technology. So first of all, I just introduced the regulation. So that's already happening as of today, since April 24, mandating payment terminal adoption. Then fraud. Then that's market timing. We just talked about this. But since it will become bigger and bigger when the market matures and the bigger the volume will go, this will become more of an issue. And then there's the players in the payment world, right? The card schemes, for example. They missed out a bit on the fuel side in the first instance, and they want to make sure that with EV they do it right the first time. So they're already mandating their acquirers and their issuers, Visa for example, to provide the transaction data in the payment flow of authorization and stopping sessions and reclaiming the money. So all the data is available within that flow. And then we didn't talk about the customer yet, the end customer. So not only surveys from the financial industry, because that they will promote themselves, but also surveys from within our industry, from CPOs and MSPs, have indicated that over 50%, so 50 to 65% even, of consumers would like to use their bank card to pay for their charging transaction. And then the fifth, payment technology. We also learn our lessons from adjacent industries, right? And what we see there, how that will adopt to our industry. So we have seen in fleet, and in fuel, and in public transport cases when the moment open loop technology entered the market, it made a huge adoption. And let me share a few examples of this with you. First, where we are founded, the Netherlands. So this was an identical closed loop system to what we use for EV charging. Also a closed loop card, and the infrastructure only supported that. But since last year they opened up to support open loop technology, and in 1 year time, transactions were 33% were on open loop. Second example, London Underground started way back 10 years ago. It's now 50% open loop transactions, but increasing still. New York Metro, 76%. and will reach 100% in the next 2 years because they decided to phase out the legacy technology of closed loop. But also in our industry, we have examples of an international DC fast charging operator, which already as of today does 33% via open loop technology. With this in mind, how do we look at the future of EV payments? And to make a metaphor, we think it's like a game of domino. And let me explain that to you. So there's a lot of domino blocks that have been placed in a logical order in the past few years, and they have been falling over, whereby each domino block is representing a market development, triggering the next one, triggering the next one, triggering the next one. Let me share with you 3 domino blocks that we see in the coming years. First, it's the market size, right? I just have shown you that still 80% roughly of the market has to develop, of the total estimated market by 2030. That means an exponential growth of the total payment volume, where that payment volume, as of today, is being paid by and used by business drivers, lease drivers, and in the end being paid by the business, a B2B segment. But that segment will be added, it will be still there, but then the consumer market will be added. And that's something different, right? Because then it's not longer the money of the business that's subjective to fraud, but it can be, sir, your money as a consumer, or madam, your money as a consumer, which is there. Which leads us to the consumer, right? So when the consumer market opens up, consumer protection is at play. If we look back at the game of domino, we have already seen 3 domino blocks have been falling. 1, price transparency, to provide the customer with protection to actually see what they have to pay. B, the second one, is ad hoc payment to be able to pay without any MSP at a CPO. And since this year, the 3rd domino block is terminal adoption, to provide more open loop adoption for better security and more convenience. So that's at hand. Also, if we don't solve the security issues within our industry and the volume gets bigger, you can just wait for regulation to step in, right? You can see this in other markets. If you don't solve it, you will be regulated. And then there's 3, that so far under the financial PSD2 legislation, there has been a lot of exempts from the start of this market. Why? Because the market was small, the volumes were small, little to regulate, was not happening. But with the coming years, the payment volume will be there, and the financial exempts, for example, the upcoming PSD3 and PSR regulation, will make sure that these exempts will go away, and parties in the ecosystem will have to have a financial compliant, have to be financially compliant. 3rd, market preference. So with trust, with fraud, with security, with those kind of things, your reputation as a player in this ecosystem becomes really vital, serving end customers, right? So there will be more focus from players in this ecosystem, the CPOs, the MSPs, but also other actors, to have partners and also themselves to build a trustworthy reputation towards their customers, and we're actively looking for partners to boost that for them. And not only the reputation, but also the conversion. And then there's the end customer, the EV driver, which in the end will be looking for the solution that has the least amount of friction. So the highest convenience, the best customer journey, right? Talking about those 2 segments, what we think at Last Mile Solutions is that customer segments will stay the same. So there will both, like in the fuel market, there will be a B2B segment and there will be a B2C segment. Consumer segment, looking at next generations being more digitally oriented, already really heavily on the digital wallets, etc., and wireless payments. We will really see that they would like to have the natural adoption of what they use in their everyday life, also for EV charging. And then there's the business, where you could say that technology will stay. Like there's still a closed loop scenario there, and maybe that will stay. But we think that the technology underneath it will change to EMV as well, to open loop technology, because there's a few things. One is that there is the schemes that no longer supporting old legacy technology. For example, the magnetic stripe cards are no longer supported by MasterCard. So in the end, they are forced to move on. That's of course the stick. But then there's also the carrot for them. And that's when you use EMV technology across multiple ecosystems, when you include charging, you can get value-added services, right? You can integrate all these services into one, adding data, loyalty, but also services like parking, charging, fueling, travel expenses, and reconcile, invoice that all in one flow, and also make the reporting really centrally and transparent. So that's what we think will happen in the future. And at Last Mile Solutions, we cater for both, because this is a transition that's already happening as of today, and we serve our customers. So what we do is we work on the closed loop, of course, but we put also full efforts on the open loop by making innovative, standardized solutions that will help the customer and the end customer. To close this presentation, I want to share with you some takeaways. One, fraud, as you just said, is actually happening. So it's no longer this gossip that's floating around in the market. Yeah, there might be some misuse or abuse. No, it's there. Second, payment is, like the market, moving from an infant to an adolescent market. We're not mature yet, but we're making steps, right? The blocks will fall over. Third, the consumer will bring new market dynamics. With the volume, the consumer will gonna come in, requiring different regulations, more protection, better experience, etc. And fourth, open loop payment adoption is actually happening. And with that in mind, my question to you to think about and to discuss is, how will you prepare as an actor in this ecosystem for the EV payment revolution, or evolution, or however you want to call it. And to do so, if you want to discuss, please visit our stand. We're at number 10 to connect, have a beer, learn more about Domino, or try out our new innovative payment offering. And thank you for listening.
So, thank you very much. Very interesting. We talked a lot about plug and charge earlier.
Sorry?
Plug and charge
Yeah.
with Allego. So, again, you know how it goes. Questions from the audience, please just raise your hand. Also from the digital space, we already have questions, so I can't even ask my question. I have to wait.
Okay.
Let's start with this one. What's your vision on how smart charging, automatic, slower, faster, postponed, etc., taking into account driver preference and car characteristics, will work with credit and debit cards?
Nice question. I think smart charging is a necessity to make sure that the grid survives, right? So our all cities becoming smart cities, everything becomes integrated. We need smart charging, so there's no doubt about it. And in my opinion, that can work perfectly fine with credit and debit card. It's more like the layer that you build between that to make sure that you can connect both these ecosystems. So I don't see it as a threat, I see it as a necessity of open loop technology also working with smart charging.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question to this one. So, implementing dynamic prices for the end customer in a public charging setting seems to be kind of challenging still. There's very few trials yet. So how does this all work and fit with a credit card terminal? Do you also have, will you change the value chain between the charge point operator and sort of the card terminal? Do you need more intermediaries for whom the dynamic price will be a challenge? And can you just offer the dynamic price right away?
Yeah, I think that can already be offered. The tricky thing with dynamic pricing is that the market needs to be, it's already there today, but on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
To do it on a large scale, you have to have all the connections in place automatically, with direct real-time communication. That's now often missing, which doesn't help to make sure that's being transparently exposed to the customer.
Yeah.
But if you have that, and that will come, then this can work perfectly fine, because the display will still display the prices and the next prices that will be there after half an hour or whatsoever. So that can still perfectly work together. And you don't need any intermediate other party.
That's what I thought. Any questions from the audience? If not, here we have another question. What do you think about plug and charge in the regards of the transition to open loop?
The ever-returning question. Yeah, no, I think it's plug and charge is a means, right? It's to help to to make this customer experience more seamless, where there still needs to be some kind of identification to be able to charge your car. And I also know that the card schemes, for example, are working to embed their standards in the standards of plug and charge as well, that it will be automatically done. So I think this will come together as well in the near future.
But so envisioning the future, we looked at that chart from the vote, you know, where you have like the majority was betting on open loop credit card. So what sort of share? It just seems like a far away from today's payment structure. And maybe you can also comment on how do customers behave today. I asked Allegro previously as well, like how many actually do use the credit card terminals? And do you actually envision it to look like this, or do you see a bigger share for plug and charge?
Plug and charge doesn't matter. It's just a means that still can be paid with a credit card or with a closed loop card. But as of today, like I told in the beginning, the market is dominated still by closed loop cards. That's what it was founded with. It was the most easy solution to push the market. But as we always underestimate evolutions as a human being and as a market, I think this will also go faster than we think. Just looking at the examples I've shared, and there's more behind it, this goes faster than we think. And especially with new generations, also the requirements from the market. So first we could set the market, but now when the mass market comes, the consumer will basically demand the solution that's most convenient for them. And in our opinion, that's open loop.
Looking into the audience, there's one question at the back.
Thanks for your presentation, very nice. I'm Paul Wessels, partner and merchant manager at Ximo. I was wondering how you see your own position in open loop payments when the level 3/CDR data flows directly from the CPO through Visa or MasterCard back to the issuer. It bypasses your platform. How do you look at that?
Thank you for your question. Good question. I honestly think it doesn't bypass our platform because the CPO doesn't have the direct connection with the gateway. They can do, of course, but we provide that service already today and strategically want to also strengthen that in the future, whereas they still need a CPO or the platform to provide those transaction data to be pushed into that payment flow. And we see definitely a role for us there.
There's another question over there. May we have...
I see one.
And another one over there. Maybe whoever gets the mic first. Here. You have a mic behind you. And then there's one here.
Yeah, so there's something I'm not understanding about the payment stuff. Are you basically just, correct me if I'm wrong, are you basically just waiting for like an Adyen or a Stripe to come and fix this payment issue as they did with places like Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's? Is it that kind of thing that this industry doesn't have yet, an Adyen or a Stripe or a thing that you do and you don't think about and then payment happens?
No, I don't think, if we do nothing as an industry ourselves, of course, then like in the previous panel, then we will be overrun by other players, right, that want to take a piece of the pie. But I think we as an industry and also we as a platform can really play a vital role in this payment ecosystem and this payment processing flow. And we have the advantage over those players like an Adyen and a Stripe that we are in the ecosystem having already the data that they need to process it. So I really see I don't see them as they of course could be a threat, but I think we have a real unfair advantage at the moment.
Thank you. I think we've run out of time, sadly.
Okay.
Maybe you just can ask his question later on when Luuk is down
Please
from
visit.
the stage.
Happy to discuss.
So thank you so much, and please come and visit Last Mile Solution booth, and you can ask all your remaining questions.
All right.
Thanks, Luuk.
Thank you.